It is the longest, most widespread internet shutdown in the history of the Islamic Republic, imposed to curtail and violently crack down on anti-government protesters that activists say have killed more than 4,000 people. The complete cut-off came on January 8th and is still largely in place, with Iranian authorities saying they don't plan to restore it until the Iranian New Year at least, which is in March. Many analysts, however, fear that Iran will never restore the internet in any substantial way, many saying it expects Tehran to follow the lines of China or Russia with extremely heavy control. While cutting off information and access to the international community, the internet crackdown has also hit the economy and online businesses hard. To get more insight into what this internet access or lack of it will mean going forward, we can speak now to Keep It On, Global Campaign Manager at Access Now, an international network of over 300 organisations fighting against internet shutdowns. Felicia Anthonio, thanks so much for your time. Can I start by asking you about Iran? You know, this total shutdown, which I believe is still very much in place. Do you expect it to last?
From all indications, this is the longest and most comprehensive shutdown we've documented in the history of the country. And it doesn't look promising, given the comprehensive nature of this shutdown. From what we are receiving from our partners as well as activists on the ground, it seems this is going to be longer than we expected. And this is not a new practice in the country, as we've documented other forms of internet disruptions and brutal crackdown on protesters in recent years in Iran.
Indeed, we have seen them cut off internet in the past, notably in 2002, but it still surprised many the extent to which they could hold a blackout over the entire country. I mean, Iran clearly had quite sophisticated systems in place. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so Iran has been pushing for the intranet or national internet, and of course trying to get people off the global internet. And so this shutdown and its nature clearly shows the authorities' desire to ensure that people do not have access to the global internet, at the same time prevent people from sharing information with the outside world amid the violent crackdown on protesters. It's really, really concerning for us as activists that prolonged shutdowns are being used as a tactic to silence dissent and to also conceal human rights abuses, as we have seen being documented in Iran. At least we've recorded over, or reports indicates that over 4,000 protesters have been killed, 9,000 plus additional cases are still being investigated, and over 26,000 people have been arrested. And this is these figures could be higher, but due to the shutdown, it's making it really, really difficult to verify and confirm these cases effectively.
In general, across the world, does an internet blackout or crackdown like that correspond with an upsurge in violence?
Yes. Years of monitoring by the Keep It On coalition shows that internet shutdowns in Iran has consistently serve as a warning sign of mass violence and brutal crackdown. And we've seen similar violence erupt in countries like Myanmar, Ethiopia, Sudan, and other places. So yes, shutdowns tend to enable actors or governments to conceal human rights violations.
Now, are there any ways around this internet blackout for, let's stick with Iranians? I mean, I'm thinking of the virtual private networks or VPNs that many of us use to connect to different servers around the world, or of course there's the satellite internet as well.
In this case, VPNs would not be able to work, given that it's a complete blackout. But despite authorities' quest to conceal what's going on, activists in the country and outside the country have remained resilient, and they've tech engineers as well as developers are also supporting people with ways to bypass the restrictions and to let the world know what's going on in the country. We know that people have are relying on low Earth orbit satellite connectivity like Starlink equipment to share information with the outside world. And we do know that the authorities began using jammers to disrupt satellite connectivity services, but people are still finding ways to work around and to access the internet. However, these workarounds are very limited to a very small number of people and also defeats the purpose of an open internet for all.
It does beg the question of the future of the internet and who gets to control it, because indeed it's either governments, it looks like now, or major businessmen. It looks like the person who controls the internet really has a staggering amount of power. And are there any measures being put in place to redress this?
From our perspective, we want the international community to, first of all, or we join the international community, including the UN Independent International Fact-Finding Mission, to ensure that internet access is immediately restored and mobile connectivity as well. And we also demand accountability and transparency for the human rights abuses that have been documented in the country. And yes, it's important for us to begin conversations around what mechanisms we can adopt to support communities and people that are increasingly being affected by internet shutdowns, like alternative connectivity, satellite connections, and other workarounds that could potentially help people in such authoritarian countries or regimes to be able to access and share information freely.
Now, can you compare a little bit to us what we're seeing currently in Iran to the situation in China, which has always had a very strong control of the internet and lots of applications and sites blocked for people there, or indeed Russia, which has come a little bit later than China maybe to controlling it, and even I believe has this kill switch for the internet there?
Yeah, we've documented similar disruptions in Russia, in particular during its invasion on Ukraine, and the impact cuts across. We focus a lot on the impact that these disruptions have on people. And of course, during crisis, information is a critical lifeline that needs to be protected. And I think internet shutdowns, even though it's not limited to authoritarian regimes, as we've seen some democratic governments also impose them, I think it's a sign of governments wanting to take control of the narrative. And so that is not different from what we are seeing in China or in Russia or in Iran and other parts of the world.
Is there anything finally individuals can do to help protect themselves? I mean, should we be ditching our mobile phones and bringing landlines back in much of the world?
I think at this point, our lives have become very dependent on mobile phones and also on information. So I wouldn't recommend that. But I think we need to remain resilient in drawing attention to these authoritarian practices and working together to demand accountability and ensure that human rights are respected. I think we've gotten to a point where there's been an established global norm that internet shutdowns are unlawful and harmful, but norms become ineffective without consequences. And so we need stronger legal and political accountability mechanisms so governments cannot just shut down the internet with impunity and simply restore when they feel like it.
Felicia Anthonio, thanks so much for your time and bringing us your insight on the situation. Much appreciated.